I think I really don't understand life. I don't understand interactions with people well. Maybe you could diagnose me with something, I don't know. I really don't understand a lot of how life works and how we move through it. I have my own ideas, but they're not necessarily, I think, in sync with other things. But I know one thing, when I go to natural areas and forests and places like that, I feel totally at ease. I feel I get the answers to the questions that I have in my head. I know it sounds monastic or something to say that, but just that feeling within me, I love the chaos and the order of nature in equal form, you know, like there's this beauty, there's a resonance, and there's a connection that you can feel as you watch this vast diversity of things around you existing in their own worlds that don't connect up with yours and that hold its own place of relevance, that just resonates so well with, as a contrast to the complexities of life, you know? We're worrying about our mortgages and things like that, and we can slip away into nature and find these places where all of the things that we've progressed through in our thinking, whether you think it's progressive or not, but on the journey of humanity where we're going, we can revert back to these natural areas and get a bit of a taste of what life's like without having gone down that journey of following the sort of civilization approach to where we are now, and get more of a taste of what the Earth's about and what the connections are with different species. Like, as you were talking about before with plant connections, I have huge connections to plants, and I love watching the seasons change. I love watching orchids that you cannot find, that might only flower for one day, just pop out of the ground, and you can be there just for that one day. They might flower when it's 20 degrees and 25 degrees for one day of the year. And you might be lucky enough to come past and see the one species that pollinates it that's also endangered and only appears for a short period. Just in that moment, that's something I've begun to long for. And that's something that I definitely think I'm addicted to, whatever endorphins come with being in nature. But maybe addictive is not the right word, because I'm not sure if it should be associated with something unhealthy. I think it's really good for who we are. I have a bit of a connection with owls. I've always had a bit of an interest in owls, and at a couple of key moments in my life, owls have played a bit of a part. I'm sure everybody and yourself has their own sort of moment or thing or something, but yeah, owls is something that's been a recurring one for me, and some moments have really conducted through my life that have been connected to those. There's a species of owl that's I've connected with a lot, and it's called the powerful owl. That's not the name I'm giving it. It's not my descriptive word. It's the actual science name is the powerful owl. And it's Ninoch strenua is the Latin name for it, the scientific name. And there's an indigenous name for it, but we have lots of indigenous names in Australia. But I don't know it for the local area. But yeah, the powerful owl, I have one particular story about it that really changed my life quite dramatically. I was living in a house, a very old house. And this house was great because I really got to be surrounded by the forest, and I loved being there. And I'd come across all sorts of creatures. Like when I woke up, I'd see koalas in the trees. I'd see kangaroos and wallabies moving through. I'd even have the small native mice, Antechinus, come moving through their house, and they'd sit on the side of the windows and pick off moths, and they eat them like this. They're a really amazing species. But the owl, the powerful owl, has this incredible call, and it's very cryptic. It's very hard to see. And there's a saying about these owls is that we only get to see them when they choose to let us see them, because they can see us far before, and they can move off before we get there. But if they're letting you see it, it's consent in a sense. I don't know how true that is, but that's certainly one of the things that's said. Anyway, this particular owl was calling, and they've got a really strong call. I don't want to do it because it's embarrassing, but who cares? My life's embarrassing. But anyway, it's like a hoo, hoo. It's very deep, and it resonates, and you can hear it across the valley sort of thing. And the excitement for me was that I heard this owl calling, and I'm like, oh, wow. I'm sitting here, sitting in the house, and I can hear the owl, and I get very excited. And I think I was wearing a singlet and just a pair of old pants, and I rushed out to hear this owl call. And I walked down the gully, and I got to the bottom of the gully, and I had to creep through the forest, and eventually there it was. This owl has these bright yellow eyes, and it was just staring right through me. It was intimidating as well as beautiful in equal measure, if you can imagine. Just absolutely stunning. So I'm looking face to face with this owl, and I'm just taking it in. I'm sort of honoured, in awe, and also respectful of its place and me being in its vicinity. And you definitely feel like it's king of the forest, and I'm a mere servant who doesn't have the right to be there necessarily. Anyway, as I'm down with the owl, I suddenly start hearing some like exploding noises, like some noises like explosions. And I thought, it's July 4th. Americans do something, some fireworks day or something. But in Australia, we don't have that. And I thought, oh, there must be some Americans around celebrating that. And the owl eventually moved off with these loud explosions. And I was sort of like, oh, that's disappointing. Like, anyway, as I turned away and walked back up the hill, I'd been with the owl for maybe not long, 15 minutes, 20. Walked up the hill to see my whole house was engulfed in flames. And those explosions I'd heard were actually gas bottles and things that were firing. And every single possession I'd had for my whole life was engulfed in flames. And the only things I had left was the singlet, the pants, and nothing else. And so I went up. I was a bit in shock and confused. I mean, you're sort of in shock, and you sort of go through this process of, you know, every childhood photo, every single thing you have is gone. I used to collect books of plants and animals, identifying ones. So anyway, I'm just lost in this moment of just, wow, the flames are in front of me. There's no way I can put it out. And eventually the fire people come and they put it out, and everything's gone, like every single thing. And later they found out that there'd been an electrical fault in the roof, and that had caused the fire. And they said it was extremely lucky I wasn't in the house, because if it had started in the roof and I didn't know about it, it would have just sort of combusted a bit, and I would have, you know, had to escape at short notice. So in a sense, the owl had saved me because had I been in the house, I could have had a horrible experience. And the only thing left is something which I've kept, which is actually a field guide that I found amongst all the rubble. There was just a few pages of a field guide. And one of the pages, I don't know if it'll show up here, I can send you it, but is a picture of the powerful owl burnt around it really well, the same owl that I'd found. And yeah, so I felt very special to have had that experience. And since I sort of spent a lot of time trying to protect the habitat of owls, especially powerful owls, and trying to protect the areas to stop logging and development. And that's basically a lot of what my work is trying to protect habitat for various species. I don't believe in spooky stuff necessarily. So for me, I haven't tried to overanalyze it, but I just know it was a really special experience, and it connected me a lot with owls. And yeah, it was life-changing too, in that I lost every possession I had and started from scratch.
Mm.